Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, a homeowner association president claims my 50-year-old family property is part of his fraudulent HOA. He is totally in the wrong. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "Wife Destroyed My Life." First of all, a slight preface. My wife and her brother were very close when young. He got very into alcohol and went to prison for 10 years and then went immediately back to drinking. He then died in front of her. My wife, 30, and I, 33, started going to the gym together. We were loving the results of the fitness, it made intercourse even better, and we could not keep our hands off each other. We felt as happy and close as ever. 3 weeks after her brother died, this guy chats her up at the gym and she immediately clicks with him. I was wary, but I trusted my wife. She is a sweetheart and never imagined her having the ability to have an affair. Last weekend we had one of the most romantic days and evenings we have had in a while. This week she decides that she cannot go on without finding out why she developed such a quick connection with this guy. We own a house and 3 pets. Her family and everyone we know are devastated and blown away, but she is dead serious. The woman I knew last week even, has left the building. This is a living nightmare that I just want to wake up from. We did couples counseling 3 times and have one schedule on Wednesday, but she has completely made up her mind and seems to have rapidly fallen out of love with me. My life as I had known it is over. I just needed to get this all off my chest. Edit, thank you for the responses. I didn't expect such an outpour of support. I'm reading every comment. Relevant comments to the story. OP responded in regards to communicating with his in-laws and wife's parents and how they are dealing with the brother's passing. OP answered, "I'm in daily communication with her parents, we are very close, they are as heartbroken as me and praying that she snaps out of it before irreparable damage is done. Unfortunately, that time is very close if it had not passed already and they understand that." Then OP responded in regards to if his wife has been diagnosed with any issues that might have affected her in a traumatic event situation. OP responded, "She is not, her dad has bipolar, her grandpa has bipolar, both allegedly kicked in when around 30. Then OP answered in regards to if there were any sexual activities taking place between his wife and the involved individual from the gym, and OP said, "About a month ago he went into where she works, library, and kissed her. Right after that she snapped out of the fog and realized this is crazy and told him that he needs to keep to himself and that was not okay. Things went great for 3 weeks and then she snapped right back into it. She swears that kiss is the only physical contact they've had though. I'm extremely dubious, but who knows. I was her first everything and she is pretty sexually nervous, not open about herself as a sexual being." Update to the story, I had a kind Redditor reach out to me over the weekend asking how I was doing regarding the above situation. The original post got a lot of attention, so I figured I would give an update. My wife filed for divorce a month after moving out. During this time I did the whole online dating thing, which was way worse than I could have ever expected, kept myself busy working out, building my own confidence, and hanging out with friends. In general, it was horrible, but I was trying to keep my head up. I was in therapy, I did not jive with my first therapist, found a new one in December, who I liked a lot more, and I'm still seeing her. Mid-December, my wife calls me crying, asking if she can stay in the guest bedroom because she has nowhere to go. I say yes, even though she hurt me so badly, I did still love her, so things with guy at the gym turned very toxic very fast. I know the word narcissist gets thrown around a lot these days. This guy though, it's hard to believe people like him actually exist. So she stays in the guest bedroom for a week and then goes and stays at her parents for a month. She had a nervous breakdown and was able to get a medical leave of absence from her work. Mid-January comes around and she is back at the house, but still in a very frantic and erratic state, sort of like she was withdrawing off hard drugs. I had no idea about the addictive nature of toxic relationships. It's a psychological cluster F. She is clear that she's too effed up in the head to be in a relationship and is gonna work on herself. I give her the time and space she requested. She goes all in on learning about the psychology of all of this crap, inner child work, how the nervous system reacts and attracts you to toxic people if you grew up in a toxic household. Anxious and avoidant attachment styles. There is this book called How to Stay Married where the wife had an affair and it turns out the root of the issue was her unresolved childhood trauma. Long story short, same thing happened here. It hurts, but I can forgive her. She is my best friend and we are insanely compatible in a lot of ways. She has really been returning to herself the past month and she is the happiest I've seen in her at least a year, and last week we filed the paperwork to dismiss the divorce. We are both in individual counseling and soon to start couple therapy. I'm sure a lot of people will think I'm making a mistake in reconciling, but I'm actually happy. I do trust her that she now has the knowledge to not let this happen again, and she has the drive to become the best person she can be. Edit, I'm reading all the comments and taking everything to heart, even especially the ones calling me stupid, a chump or a doormat. I completely understand where you're coming from. I just don't have time or the desire to respond to so much. I want things to work out and I do trust my gut that this was a one-time thing. I'll post an update and take all of the "I told you so" if it comes to that. And yeah, Ripestars, I'm really curious what you think about this story so far. Do you think OP made the right decision here or not? Honestly, if I would have been in OP's situation, there's no way I could have forgiven my wife. But maybe, how do you say it? OP might be the bigger man here than me, but it's just I would not be able to forgive someone for cheating. No matter what they went through previously. In my opinion, there's not a good excuse for that. But then again, props to OP for being so understanding. Let me know how you see it in the comments. Now we have some more relevant comments from Reddit and they say, what boundaries did you set? I'm asking because we only have a couple of posts for insight, and from what's there, it strongly implies that she has not accepted responsibility nor accountability for what she did to you. Man, she didn't just break your heart. She actually shattered and then stomped on the pieces. Healthy relationships need trust, respect, and boundaries. She violated all three in the most humiliating way. Is it possible you're just fleeing back into a safe space, aka your marriage that in reality doesn't exist anymore? Doesn't read like there's anything stopping her from doing this to you again. Good luck, man, but damn, what she did to you was beyond effed up, and the only thing worse would be if you were now raising his kid too. By the way, have you been intimate with her since? Have you gotten tested for STDs afterwards? You should, and if you have any kids, please test paternity so that your rights are protected. And then OP said, I have complete access to her phone anytime, individual counseling for her, and couples counseling for us. Basically, anytime I may even have a hint of suspicion of any sort of nefarious activity, I can investigate, no questions asked. This has not needed to happen because we spend nearly all our free time together or doing our own crap around the house. If we are not spending time together, she is reading self-help or watching self-help on YouTube. We work the same hours and we go to the gym together, we come home and what she did was beyond effed up. We are all on the same page with that. She says that what she did is unforgivable and that she is a huge piece of crap, a complete moron, and that I deserve better. I want to make things work for the sake of the life we built over 12 years, the beautiful home and land we own together, the vast array of common interests we have together. I want to continue building memories of love and laughter and fun like we did for 12 years. There is a lot that is important to me that can be saved if the work is put in. Her estranged brother dies in front of her while she is holding his hand, and then weeks later, this guy comes into her life and love bombs her while she is spiraling in grief. It's no excuse for what she did, but it's enough for me to give her at least some iota of grace that she was not in a sane and rational mind when this all went down. Yes, we've been having intercourse and no, we don't have kids. And yeah, Ripestars, honestly, I don't know what to say about this story. I guess just that I would not have done the same as OP. And it seems like most of the comments on Reddit would agree with me. But then again, let me know what you think in the comments. The next one is titled, Revenge on a Scammer. I am a new dad. I am sleep deprived and just feel sluggish all the time. After dropping my baby off with her grandparents, I saw an invoice on my email for $450 that I never paid to Norton Antivirus. It had a phone number to call, so I called it. As soon as I called, I realized it was a scam, but it sure as heck aggravated me. I pretended to be scammed up until the point where I would give my computer control to the scammers, which took a good 10 minutes. I spoke to Melvin after that. I told him he's a dumb scammer and he yelled at me. So I realized the number was still there. I have 2 Google Voice accounts I don't use anymore that I had for a prior job. So then I called them. I kept calling, I kept asking for Melvin, and sometimes I would get a new guy who did not know my game. Fortunately, I did not have anything urgent at work that day, so I kept calling. I called and called and called. At some point, one of the gentlemen let out an exasperated sigh, saying, "Oh my god, it's you again." I did not relent, I kept calling. I called over and over and over and over again. I told as many of them as possible that their mothers are ashamed of them. I told them that their lives are worthless and wastes, and I kept calling and calling until I actually had work to do, and so I stopped. Today I woke up and called the number again. Today they were PayPal. I got Melvin again. We chatted before he told me to F off. I called again. I kept calling non-stop for about 30 minutes. After an hour break, I tried calling again, immediately blocked on all my numbers. I grabbed a family member's phone and immediately disconnected. I win. It was a small, insignificant battle, but I won. No one can call that number anymore until next time. And yeah, Ripe Stars, that is exactly how you get revenge on these awful phone scammers. And the next one is the title HOA story. From what I can tell, there are two kinds of HOAs. Real ones that are very rare to find and actually want to help the community, and fake ones that just have people who want money or power running it and taking advantage of people. Far more common, sadly, and the ones I see most of these stories are about, including my own. So my grandparents, when they were in their 50s, retired and moved from a suburb into a larger, more rural area in Colorado. I remember when I was 9 and my mom died that my dad moved me and my sister up there to live there. I loved growing up there, especially in the winter, when we have more snow to play in than we could know what to do with. I don't know if it was meant to be a permanent thing, but we never moved out. Until I went to college, but it was still basically my home. After some time, my grandparents died and my dad got sick a few years later. My sister had married a man and was living with him and 2 kids. The only person left to have the house was me, and I stayed there with my dad. I helped take care of him and keep the house in good condition. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked the land around us, started to turn into a development, and an HOA formed near us. We were outside their borders, so the only part that bothered me would be potential increase in noise pollution. But that just might be me being an old man in the body of a 40-year-old. Then the HOA president came knocking on our door. Me, hello? Woman, hi, I'm the HOA president of the HOA, and I just wanted to go to everybody and introduce myself. I know that you live a little further out, and I did not want you to feel excluded. Me, excluded? Woman, yes. Just know that we at the HOA won't let you feel neglected from being a little further away. Me, I think you're a little confused. My house is not part of the HOA. Her entire demeanor changed quickly. The nice lady turned into a crazy Karen, like a switch flipped. Woman, that is very rude. You might not like to hear it, but you're part of the HOA, and I don't want to have issues with you breaking the rules. Me, what's your tone, lady? You cannot come here and start demanding that I join your HOA. I know the rights that I have. Woman, you don't have rights. You need to follow and do what we say. Me, I don't know where you got your legal degree, but here's a free lesson for you. Homes that are set and established with owners before the development of an HOA are under no legal obligation to be part of this HOA. Woman, you have no proof of that. Me, I have deed papers. Go ahead and try to mess with me. Woman, you will change your mind about this, I promise you. If it's not obvious, I have a short fuse for anybody starting crap with me. My dad had the same fuse all his life too, so maybe it's genetic or I learned from him. I just know when a person is trouble and just shut it down. She left, but I guess she knew that I was right about the law because she wasn't trying to claim I was just magically part of the HOA anymore. She was just coming over daily and I never knew which version of her I was gonna get. The fake nice woman who tried to explain why joining an HOA would be good, or the nasty one that I know was responsible for a rock going through my window. I got cameras for the property, so if she tried to do any more vandalism, I would be able to catch her in the act. I wanted to collect proof of all of the harassment as well because I had a plan. I let it go on for about a month with her harassing me, and I also got her twice on camera trying to vandalize my property. Once with raw eggs and once with spray paint because I guess she only had the creativity of a 14-year-old. I filed a civil lawsuit against her for harassment and vandalism, wanting to get money out of her for everything that she did. But I also handed things over to the police and filed a report of the harassment. It was more serious because she was doing it on behalf of an HOA. I learned that it counts as predatory and coercive business practices. Akin to somebody who won't stop harassing you to buy something. For the civil case there was not much property damage, but I was able to get some money out of her. I did that part more to just prove a point that messing with me was a bad idea. As for the criminal case, she was getting in a lot more trouble than having to give me some money. She was being charged with what I said above, but also abuse of power, verbal assault due to her threats, and trespassing, because on the videos I tell her many times to not come back. It might sound small, but these were some serious charges. Anytime a person in a position of power abuses that right, it's a big deal. With the rest of the HOA denying involvement despite the fact that they all knew what she was doing, I did not have a huge role in the criminal case aside from just needing to show that my house was not part of the HOA area and that my ownership preceded the HOA being formed. Showing them trying to force me into it was actually a violation of my constitutional rights. I wish I was more central to the court case because I wanted to sit and see if she was gonna just freak out in court or something. I've read all these great stories of Karens freaking out in court, and I don't know how these people were able to be there to see it. Maybe it's the area, but where I was, they were strict about who could come in and when. My guess was her hearing that she was going to jail did not make her happy. If I was her, I would have been a little shocked that it escalated all the way. The HOA was now in danger of just being shut down completely because who knew what they were doing / already done to other people that might not have wanted to join. They basically ended up in a situation with two choices: shut down the HOA fully, which they didn't do, or basically started over from scratch, with none of the original people being allowed to hold a position of power on the new one. I have no idea if the new one also had corrupt people in charge or if they were decent. All I knew was they left me alone. The court also ruled that I was outside of the boundaries for the HOA, so I could not be a part of it even if I wanted to be. Whoever was in charge also for sure heard what happened to the old HOA president and might have decided avoiding me was the best course of action. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So my wife gave birth to a beautiful and healthy baby boy, and our lives have been chaotic ever since. Being an active duty firefighter, I am used to situations under pressure, but nothing could prepare me for parenthood or the trials that followed. My wife, bless her soul, was much the same, a woman of strong character who refused to give up on her job until she utterly exhausted herself trying to keep her life together. This morning, I left her in bed for a well-deserved lie-in while I kept a careful watch over baby Junior. That did not necessarily mean I was ready for the task, as I found the cupboards running empty of necessary supplies. I did not want to be hit by a diaper emergency unprepared again. After an unsuccessful hunt for the car keys, I rang my best friend Tommy and asked him for a lift to the nearby Target. Tommy was free and happy to help, stopping by shortly after as I was leaving my wife a note on the fridge. The parking lot was a sparse and empty field of grey, mimicked by a sudden downpour from dark clouds. While parenting so far had many ups and downs in the first week, I did appreciate the closer parking spots. Tommy led the shopping cart along with baby Junior as I quickly crawled, then read out a list of groceries back to them, baby staring idly from the front seat. I quickly noticed the aisles were as empty as the parking lot outside, nervously wondering if I had missed the memo on the zombie apocalypse. My worries were relieved when I noticed an elderly lady looking at the cereals. She turned to look at us as we passed by and started filling our cart. I heard her call for assistance as we turned into the next aisle, though I imagined at the time that she was talking to an employee. After an eventful 10 minutes, the cart was full and the list was empty as we headed towards a checkout where a queue had suddenly formed out of nowhere. Suddenly remembering that I needed to buy something for dinner, I left Tommy in charge while I ran off, dashing through the maze. With luck and tall jeans on my side, I find what I'm looking for on a high freezer shelf holding the pizza firmly as I turn to run back to checkout. Just before I can dash away, I see the same lady from earlier standing close behind me, like a quiet tiger sneaking up on prey. I turn to move around her and become confused when she steps in my path. She starts to talk about needing some things she couldn't reach around the corner, rambling about her grocery list while I stood cornered. I waited for her to make a point, but when she stopped talking, she looked at me expectantly, finally giving me time to ask more directly. Her face twisted as if in an outrage as she repeated her grocery list and difficulties to me. I was getting kind of annoyed at this point and being pushed for time, as I already was. I apologized and tried to step around her again. This time, the lady swung her shopping cart around to block me off. Before I had the chance to act offended, she beat me to it, cussing me out about how awful I was that I, quote, wouldn't serve a nice old lady, I'm not sure what definition of nice she was using though. When I dared to open my mouth to talk back, she shouted even more, swearing outright that she would get me fired now as well. Her angry ranting began to draw in curious shoppers who stopped and peered around the aisles to watch the drama unfolding. A sound of glass breaking in a nearby aisle took her by surprise and distracted her long enough for me to gently push past her. I did not stop or look back as she shouted after me. The last thing I wanted was to be caught in a misunderstanding by store employees, myself being a 6'4" dude standing over a little lady who could easily feign victim if the moment suited her. I had a flash of panic when I arrived at the checkout to find neither a Q or Tommy. Hoping to catch him as he was packing up the car, I checked outside but found the car empty. With regret, I stepped back inside and carefully searched each aisle, checking if the coast was clear before moving on to the next one. Finally, I spotted him reading through magazines at the opposite end of the store, catching him by surprise and ushering him towards the exit. He explained that he had left the queue to pick up an item after I did not return and then went looking for me. On the way to checkout, I told him of my strange encounter. Tommy called her as Karen as they come, which I could see. We ran through the checkout process quickly and I kept my eyes peeled, but I saw no sign of her, hoping she had given up and gone home. As we approached the exit, I felt a sigh of relief, ready to put today behind me. Not so fast though. Karen and the Target manager stood ahead of me, talking to a burly security guard. She stood to point accusingly at me as the group approached to stop us. The little lady was red as a tomato and raging like I had just ran over her dog, barking out orders to the manager to quote, "fire his ass," while simultaneously cussing me out between each ragged breath. The manager and security guard could clearly tell that I didn't work here, being that I wore completely different clothes to their uniform and that they didn't know me. They tried to convey that to Karen, but she was unable to be reasoned with. She was a 60-year-old baby having one hell of a tantrum. Meanwhile, the actual baby who had been fast asleep in the shopping cart had now stirred from the noise and had begun to cry. Immediately, I turned my back on Karen, which only gave her something new to be angry about as I tried to calm my infant son. Karen had the audacity to think that I had turned away to try and run off with the groceries, circling the group to hold onto the cart at the other end. The monster was now also face to face with my baby, who only now seemed to realize that the Karen monster was there. Tommy, during this nightmare, had snapped out of his stupor to talk things over with the manager, leaving me to deal with Karen alone. Now much closer to the lady, I realized why she looked familiar, recalling a similar tantrum I witnessed a few months back where she had reduced a store employee to tears. Her bloodshot eyes turned from me to the baby, breaking out stalemate staring contest. She told him to stop crying, a woman of clearly little to no parenting skills or brain cells left to boast about, shouting at a baby and expecting them to calm down. As her hands leave the shopping cart, I swoop in to pick up baby Junior, unsure but unwilling to let Karen's actions play out. I didn't know this lady, but every cell in my body was screaming about her. I turned again to face away from Karen, which seemed to calm the baby slightly, until Karen popped up again, shouting closer to us both. I told her to back off, looking over her shoulder to try and signal to Tommy, to no luck. In my momentary distraction, Karen made a quick movement towards me, but stepping back I found I was blocked by the cart and unable to gain distance on her. The sound hit me first, snapping the other group and bypasser silent. Smack! The baby was also silent now, as if stunned to silence at the act. Karen had struck my baby, who now began to show a very bruised face. Calmly setting down baby Junior back into the shopping cart, I turned and delivered a swift kick to her abdomen before Tommy could stop me. The force of the kick knocked her into the aisle nearby, sending piles of toilet paper down upon her. I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I had stopped caring at that point. I sat and waited for the cops to arrive to deal with me or her in whatever way they saw fit. Karen burst free of the toilet paper pile as the cops arrived. She roared in anger, turning to me hand outstretched but stopping shy when she saw the cops next to me. While she did try to play innocent, there were enough witnesses to the incident that it didn't take long before she fell back into the same attitude. Karen and I both followed the cops to the station, but only I was cleared of charges. Obviously, I pressed charges on this monster of a Karen, and she soon ended thereafter, ending up in jail for assaulting us. And honestly guys, I hope this Karen won't see the light of day anytime soon again. Either way, if you enjoyed the story, please don't forget to like the video and maybe post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. Thank you so much. And the next one is titled A Can of Whoop-Ass. This happened a while ago, and at the time it was seen as more of a practical joke than petty revenge, but it was well deserved. We had a foreman on a construction job that I worked at who was also the owner's son. We can call him Aaron. He was arrogant, always showed up late, and would leave early. Very entitled with his daddy's money and power, he would also randomly fire people for fun and then say just kidding after they picked up all their tools and were heading to the truck. At the time, it was all part of a vicious cycle of continuous practical jokes. Aaron was a bachelor who lived alone. He would get off work, go out for beers, and go home drunk. Occasionally, he would have get-togethers at his apartment to have a few beers. The only groceries he ever bought were canned food, his dinner every night came out of a can, and his breakfast the next morning would be a can of fruit before he went out the door. He hated shopping and would only go to the store every other month, but he would buy cases and cases of canned food. Chili, fruit cocktails, veggies, beans, whatever came in a can, he would grab it and load up his cart. I happened to have a dentist appointment one morning. Aaron told me, "Don't bother coming to work because you won't have a job if you're not here on time." I knew he was probably kidding, but it still ate at me knowing that this was his way of using his power. I went to my appointment and it was much faster than expected, so I made a slight detour on the way back to work. Everyone that's ever worked on Aaron's crew knew he never locked his apartment. It's a small community and most of us don't here, and Aaron's bragged several times that some idiot would be brave enough to rob his house anyway. Several of the crew, including myself, had also been sent to his place to pick up things that he forgot to bring to work because he was hungover. I stopped by Aaron's house and removed every single label from every single can in his entire place. I checked every cupboard and 2 small pantries. I put every can on the counter and I stacked the labels carefully. I tried to be as random as possible in that I moved as many cans around in the amount of time that I had. I then went to work like I just came back from the dentist. Aaron did not notice that I was back for a while, but when he did, he said, "I thought I told you not to bother coming back." I was not in the mood for it and I replied, "I can leave now if you want." And I made sure he knew that I was serious. He laughed it off and we went about our day. The next day at work, he started by telling us about somebody removing the labels from his cans. He thought it was someone who had quit a few weeks ago and was kind of laughing it off. But as the days went on, it got funnier and funnier. He would come to work complaining about opening a can of green beans for breakfast, or when he got home from the bar the night before, he opened 3 cans before he found something he wanted to eat for dinner. He was trying to organize them into groups that looked similar, but it wasn't working well. Nearly every day for weeks I got a laugh over it, and I'm still chuckling over it years later. Petty revenge or practical joke? And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.